I'm Nancy K. and I'm presenting the paper with Dr. Naresh Rao H. from the Department of Media Studies. I'll be presenting on the topic of misinformation and disinformation as privacy firewalls. As we know, there are lots of studies available about privacy behaviors on Facebook and targeted advertising for commercial and also political purposes. Specifically, the role of Facebook in manipulating users towards certain political leaning took everyone by surprise in March 2018. Facebook has had a central role in election of many countries repeatedly from 2008, but users were helpless since their data was already with Facebook. This vulnerability of users demanded better privacy protective measures. Therefore, this study examined literature on privacy behaviors to find studies on misinformation and disinformation adopted as spontaneous methods of privacy protecting behavior. The goal was achieved by first defining the privacy problem areas in information privacy and defining the concepts that constitute privacy through Solo's taxonomy and conceptual framework of privacy. The key arguments that the author makes are that Facebook users need to fill up false information in their profile and any other place where it is applicable in order to protect their privacy effectively. Whether the false information provided in the profile is intended to just protect oneself or harm another depends on the user. Unlike the privacy behaviors, misinformation and disinformation protect the information privacy of a user right at the first stage of information disclosure. Unlike limiting self-disclosure, a profile created with misinformation or disinformation does not affect the need for social interaction. In fact, it allows greater freedom that nurtures development of all alternative identities. As we can see, there are two screenshots from a gaming app in which there are several players listed on the left hand side and in the second picture at the top. All the players don't have their actual picture and they don't have their names either. So this allows the user or any individual to develop freely and express themselves in a very autonomous way than being surveilled all the time. The second example shows two advertisements which discriminates the user based on their location or their previous purchase history. In the first image, the price shown is 219 rupees and in the second, the price is 129. But if we look keenly at the first picture, there is no additional charge for delivering the product. Whereas in the second one, while the price looks like it's very cheap, another 98 rupees is being added to the delivery. So the price almost is the same, except for a small difference of like rupees 10. So this explains so much about how any platform uses existing data to target the psychologies of different kinds of people. So there are some ways in which data point accumulation for different profiles of people who use the internet, and following some of the ways, disinformation can work for the users by splitting words and replacing letters of keywords that an algorithm will not make sense of and add to the user's profile. Even if data aggregators ran a communication through grammar check, it cannot correct all the disinformation. In the three examples below, a dot has been included between a single word so that it looks like two separate words. Therefore, the algorithm cannot make sense of it. And in the fourth point, the spelling of the word shopping has been changed. And in the last two examples, there's again other forms of disturbances in the words. The theoretical frameworks used to interpret this study are from Daniel J. Solov's privacy conception, The first is about recurring topics which are discussed when privacy comes to mind. The first one is about right to be let alone. The second is limited access to self. Third is the concealment of discrediting information from others. Fourth is the ability to exercise control over our own information. Fifth is protection of one's personality, individuality, and dignity. Sixth is intimacy over the sixth one is intimacy, which is control over information about relationships from others. The second conception is a conception of privacy problems which cause confusions in privacy being conceptualized. So once the problems have been defined, Solev argues that the punishment or outcomes of the problems can be determined, and the ways in which it can be handled can be determined. So according to that, he focuses on information privacy alone in this taxonomy, and he divides them into four. The first is information collection, second is information processing, third is information dissemination, and the last is invasion of privacy. The methodology used in the study is qualitative. Method is a systematic review of existing literature. Articles of peer-reviewed journals have been used. The two databases that were used are Elsevier and JSTOR. Critical review is of articles from the past 5 years, which is 2016 to 2020. When we look at the literature in privacy behavior, a lot of the users don't realize that once information is disclosed, it becomes a collective ownership. So the user of the data of the user cannot be controlled by the actual original user from whom the information was disclosed. Instead, all those people who got to know about the information share controlled dissemination of the information. So at this point, the original user cannot control the outcomes of their own behavior. So privacy protection is less attractive, but it is an important task nonetheless. The cost of long-term freedom and dignity are just monetary incentives and convenience. If we look at this graph, Facebook has a user base of 2.7 billion monthly active users, and this does not include its other companies like WhatsApp and Instagram. And Facebook generates a revenue of 70.7 billion US dollars as of 2019, which is a 15 billion leap from the previous year's revenue. And this revenue comes primarily from the revenue generated through advertising online. What is more shocking is that India is at the top of the Facebook consumption chain at 290 million users. And the second is United States, which shows a difference of about 100 million from India. This figure shows that the growth of Facebook users has been constantly increasing without any perceivable drop in the usage pattern. So it has been constantly increasing. But the difference is that user behavior has changed from before after knowing about the Cambridge Data Analytica. For information regarding COVID-19, respondents said that they did not trust Facebook, yet the usage trend across Facebook's platforms combined has risen by a whopping 70% during this time. So these figures tell us that The rate at which user data is produced and accelerates the growth of Facebook's ad revenues from tracking and utilizing our data. Facebook thrives on the primary content created by users. This suggests that we take our personal information privacy seriously. Natural language processing as well as human intelligence are methods of data aggregation which are far more invasive than just the automated method. Therefore, disinformative profiles are necessary to protect privacy now and in the future when technology progresses. Though each one of us has practiced misinformation and disinformation at some point or the other in our internet usage history, this behavior has not been reported in studies on privacy behavior. Misinformation or disinformative profiles must be created with specific information privacy outcome in mind. A study of school students in Turkey reveals that they mind sharing their password with others. They were involved in risky online behavior because students do not consider photos, videos, shares, posts, and friend lists as personal data. The contribution of the study by Schwartz and others are twofold. The first is the conception of a novel model for selectivity in sharing information in online social networks than other information disclosure behaviors. Second, the model sheds light on the relationship between perceptions and actual behaviors. They divide privacy concerns into institutional and social. Social concerns are said to affect privacy behavior more. Here, privacy is perceived as an ongoing dynamic optimization process in which people continually alter boundaries to manage their privacy accordingly to separate the contexts. When people are unable to separate the contexts, what happens is a collapse of contexts, and in such situations, the person loses their privacy. The findings from this study are two main gaps. Though each one of us has practiced misinformation and disinformation at some point or the other in our internet usage history, this behavior has not been reported in studies on privacy behavior as an effective tool. This approach is far more effective as it can curb privacy problems right at the point of origin. This is a research gap that needs to be addressed. Further, experimental studies need to be done to prove that targeted advertising algorithms can be re-engineered by the user without any special software by simply adopting privacy protective behavior. The following conclusions have been drawn from this study. It has become evident that privacy behavior and perception depend on age, knowledge of data scandals, incentives, individual preference for privacy, and the protective behavior that individuals are equipped with. Privacy protective behavior online has to be inculcated at the same age that individuals learn to use information technology devices. Facebook would have to spend excess to figure out which profiles have accurate information, which is a fake profile. In one of the cases, a person called Robin Thompson, had provided false information on his Facebook profile. And this information was used by a website called Spokeo to supply information to other agencies. Since all this was false information, Robin filed a case on Spokeo regarding what happened. And the court ruled in his favor. So, using false information is not a crime in any manner as long as it doesn't affect another person. Users of Facebook must implement misinformation and disinformation wherever possible and observe any difference in targeted ads served to account with fake information from the actual one. Although there is an inconvenience in feeding false data and maintaining records of each so that we won't be locked out of our own accounts, the benefits of these tools will protect the user even if technology keeps evolving as we progress. Limitations and scope of the study are as follows. Focus group discussions would have supplemented this study and strengthened the findings. It can be suggested that misinformation and disinformation have not been reported in studies on privacy behavior. This is a research gap that needs to be addressed. And focus group discussions on the topic will help us understand the real world status in future studies. The game app suggested in this article to change algorithm can be performed as an experimental study to verify if re-engineering algorithms from the user's end is possible. The difference in ad targeting behavior of algorithms has to be experimented on Facebook account that has been created with fake information from the actual one. With this, we come to the end of the study, and this page shows a list of few references that have been used in the study. Thank you.